So that's the end of those topics. We've gotten our seeds or our plants in the ground in our newly prepared beds in the site that we've selected very carefully. And now we'll talk about mulching, because mulching is one of the ways that you can really reduce the amount of maintenance that's required for the garden. It goes a very long way to making a garden a low-maintenance garden. And that is because mulch has lots of advantages. Well, first of all, what is mulch? Mulch is really anything that you apply to the soil surface in a layer that serves the purpose of holding in moisture, reducing the light that gets down to weed seeds that may germinate, provides a barrier that will reduce the number of weeds that grow through it, and also eventually is worked into the soil as organic matter by the macroorganisms in the soil. So it has lots of different benefits by applying this layer of either organic or inorganic materials in a layer over the soil around the root zones of plants. So we'll talk a little bit more about what types of mulches to use. Upper left-hand corner you see a shredded, it's a wood chips. And those are larger chunks of wood. They break down slower. And in a planting bed situation where you have trees and shrubs or possibly perennials where you don't want to have to reapply the mulch very often, that type of mulch is a very good mulch to use. It lasts a long time and it holds up for a good long time without having to replace it. Just below that on the left-hand side, there are two options shown there. The lower triangle is shredded bark. Shredded bark is lighter weight, but again, because it is a wood product, it breaks down relatively slowly and is good for trees and shrubs and perennials, that sort of planting beds, and it can be used around annuals too. The other triangle of that picture on the bottom is stone. Don't ever use stone as a mulch. Stone has so many disadvantages, and this particular stone looks a little like it's just a limestone gravel. And limestone gravel is going to change the pH of the soil. Stone absorbs heat and then radiates it down into the soil. And stone is heavy, and so it is going to weight down the soil, damage the soil structure as a result. And then what you'll find is that as organic matter starts to fall from your trees and shrubs in your planting beds and your perennials, that organic matter falls down into and onto the stone. What does organic matter do over time? It starts to break down. As it starts to break down, it's composting. It becomes a substrate that weed seeds can blow into and start to grow in. And then what you'll have is weed seeds growing in your stone mulch. And then getting rid of the stones and the weeds and the compost that they're growing in becomes an enormous project. So never use stone in a landscape setting, in a home landscape situation. The upper right-hand corner here is straw that's being used in a vegetable garden. It's one of the best things to use in a vegetable garden because it does break down relatively quickly. And for vegetables, that's a good thing because they're annuals. We're probably not going to plant exactly the same things in the same spots or in the same areas. The planting beds may be paths next year, and the places that were paths will now be planting beds. And so you want to be able to till the entire garden and just till in that straw. And as an organic matter, it's great for that purpose. Then down below, they're using plastic here, and I chose this picture because there is black plastic being used as well as red plastic being used. Plastic is, again, a layer that's being put down over the root zones of plants for the purpose of suppressing weeds and holding in moisture. The one drawback with plastic mulches is that you do have to make sure when you water that you water into whatever holes you've cut to plant your plants into. And here they're using a bulb planter to cut the holes in the black plastic. The red plastic, interestingly enough, is used for crops that have red fruits. So tomatoes, strawberries they do have an advantage when being grown with a red mulch. Up to 20% higher yields have been reported through research in beds that have been mulched with red plastic mulch for strawberries and tomatoes. So it's something that's worth a try. You see these red plastic mulches and the little trays that you put around a tomato plant, and you probably kind of wonder, is it really helpful to use the red? But it is university research that has shown that it can be up to a 20% higher yield when using a red mulch below these two products. So those are some of the things to use as mulches. How to go about mulching? Well, the important thing is to make sure that you don't push the mulch up against the stems of the plants. It should be deeper, just adjacent to the plant, 2 to 4 inches as a general rule. When you're talking about straw, you can put 6 inches or more because it's very light and airy, and it will gradually pack down a little bit more. But you sort of want to make a donut around the plant so that right where the plant enters the soil or exits from the soil, there is no mulch, and then it mounds very quickly up to the 2 to 4 inches. So keep it away from the stems of plants, and a 2 to 4 inch layer as a general rule will work quite nicely. Another little fun thing about mulches is slime mold. People actually do call us up and say, it looks like somebody has vomited all over my planting beds. It's also called dog vomit slime mold, or dog vomit mold. And I loved this picture of the beer can with the slime mold growing up over the sides of it. And I wish I had the pictures from it, but I actually was called out to a site that had slime mold that was growing from a planting bed that was a red brick raised planting bed that was kind of inset back in toward a building. And the slime mold was growing on the soil surface, and then it was growing up the back wall of this planting bed, which was the wall of the building, and then down the red brick planter side and out onto the sidewalk. Absolutely amazing stuff. It doesn't harm anything. Not much you can do about it. Kind of breaking it up with a rake, or spreading it out and letting it dry out is the best thing that you can do with it. It tends to form more on shredded bark than it does on any other kind of mulch. And just because you have it this year or at this moment doesn't mean you'll ever have it again. Breaking it up, spores will fly through the air and you'll think you're spreading it. You're not. It's insidious. It's everywhere anyway. It's just when the conditions are just right in that shredded bark mulch, you can get slime mold growing. When to mulch? Well, I don't bring this up because there are different kinds of mulches. There's summer mulching and there's winter mulching. And timing isn't critical in a lot of cases, but with winter mulching it is quite critical. With summer mulch, not so much. When you're putting mulch on a vegetable garden in the summer, the idea is, or a flower bed in the summer, the idea is to allow that soil to warm up good before you put the mulch on. Because if you put the mulch on when the soil is still cool, you'll slow down the development and the emerging of the new plants in the spring. So mulching your planting beds too early in the growing season will just slow down the development of those beds. It's not going to hurt them. In the long run, they'll catch up and they'll be just fine. But, you know, if you can wait until closer to, say, the middle of June, the soil has warmed sufficiently. Now mulch and you'll hold in that nice warm soil rather than holding it at a cooler temperature. Winter mulches, on the other hand, you really should wait until the soil surrounding the plant has frozen a couple of inches before you put the winter mulch on. Because there too, if you put the mulch on too early, the soil is still warm, you'll create an artificial set of conditions where the soil stays warm. The plant doesn't realize it's supposed to go dormant because the soil is still nice and warm, and so the plant may grow longer than it should and not go dormant and then get killed by very cold temperatures that suddenly come along. And this is true particularly with things like roses and perennials that you're trying to protect for the winter. Vegetable crops, several vegetable crops can actually be maintained through into December, or maybe even later. Some things can go through the entire winter with a nice thick layer of mulch on it, particularly straw mulch, as you see here. We have straw mulch on a bed of leeks, and carrots can be mulched in well, potatoes can be mulched in, onions can be mulched in. Put a nice thick layer on, and that kind of holds the soil temperatures and makes it possible for you to dig those crops into the winter rather than having to harvest them all in the fall. The upper right-hand corner picture shows putting a summer mulch on and putting that mulch over a drip irrigation system. Probably just a soaker hose here. It's a little hard to tell from the picture, but just putting that soaker hose underneath a straw mulch can help to prevent evaporation of moisture and help to really hold in moisture over the summer. So that would be a summer mulch. And the unfortunate little guy down here to the left who's been captured, that's another good reason to wait until the soil has frozen before you put a winter mulch on. Because if you put that mulch on too soon and the little mice and shrews and voles are out there looking for a nice cozy place to set up house for the winter, they'll find that mulched area and think that you've just done them a great favor. And they will sit down there all winter long and nibble away at the trunks of your roses and the bark on your shrubs if you do it too soon. So a good reason to wait until the soil has frozen to put on a winter mulch.